144 High Grade Freedom Gundam. It arrived in 2003 as kit number 8 in the High Grade Gundam SEED line, and by modern standards it is almost unrecognizable as the same machine. The wing binders hang off a single crude hinge, the DRAGOON-era detail is molded flat, and the whole thing is held together by the polycap and sticker construction that defined early 2000s Bandai engineering. The head Vulcans are stickers, the chest vents are stickers, the gold trim that everybody associates with the Freedom is, you guessed it, stickers. Articulation stops at roughly 90 degrees in the elbows and knees, and the hips are a simple ball joint that pops out if you push a pose too hard. What it had going for it was availability and price. This was the kit a 12-year-old could buy with pocket money the week after watching Kira Yamato tear through the Earth Alliance fleet, and for a generation of builders it was the first Gunpla they ever glued a sticker onto crooked. 100 Freedom Gundam. Bandai's no-grade 1/100 line existed in a strange middle space, bigger than a high grade, cheaper than a master grade, and engineered like neither. Released in 2003 alongside the rest of the 1/100 Gundam SEED model series, this Freedom stands roughly 18 centimeters tall and is built almost entirely from large, thick, pre-colored shells with no internal frame whatsoever. Open the box and the runner count feels wrong for something that size. The plasma cannons in the wings rotate, the railguns fold out of the hips, and the beam sabers join at the hilt into a double-bladed staff, which covers every signature gimmick the anime ever showed. What it does not cover is the joints, which are the same polycaps used in the 1/144 kit scaled up to carry 3 times the weight. Loose wings and drooping arms are the standard complaint. It is a display piece, not an action figure. 160 Freedom Gundam. Long before Perfect Grade got near the Freedom, Bandai put out a 160 version in the same no-grade format, and the scale alone made it a statement piece. Roughly 30 centimeters of pre-colored plastic on a shelf in 2003 was a genuinely imposing thing. The engineering is simple, but the size bought a few luxuries. The fingers are individually articulated, which was not standard at this price point, so the kit can actually grip the beam rifle rather than clamping it in a fixed fist. The wings unfold, the overhead plasma cannons deploy, the waist railguns swing out, and the beam sabers connect at the hilts. Everything works. Nothing works precisely. Seam lines run straight down the middle of the arms and legs, and the sheer surface area of blank white plastic makes it a painter's kit more than a snap-fit one. Many builders treated it as exactly that. BB Senshi Freedom Gundam. The super-deformed line took the most heavily armed mobile suit in the cosmic era and shrank it to about 8 centimeters tall, with a head roughly the size of its torso. The BB Senshi Freedom shipped in 2003 with the same gold foil stickers and pre-colored parts as the rest of the range, snapping together in under an hour with no glue and no paint. It is deliberately unserious. The wings are oversized cartoon slabs, the beam rifle is a stubby prop, and the proportions exist purely to be cute. What made the BB line matter is that it was the cheap entry drug. For many builders in Japan and across Southeast Asia, a BB Senshi was the first Gunpla they ever owned, and the Freedom was one of the most requested subjects in the line's history. It also has effectively no articulation. The arms swing. That's the list. High Grade Meteor Unit and Freedom Gundam. This is the one that does not fit on a shelf. Released in 2003 as Kit 16 in the High Grade Gundam SEED line, the Meteor Unit is a support platform that measures roughly 57 centimeters, over 22 inches, when built, and it dwarfs almost every Gunpla Bandai has ever produced regardless of grade. The kit bundles a new color version of the Freedom that docks into the front of the unit, and the whole assembly mounts on an included display base. The forward mega cannon deploys and retracts as a set, the missile hatches open and close, and the same docking hardpoint accepts the high-grade Justice Gundam if you own one. 2 blast effect parts are included. The catch is the footprint, the box is enormous, the display base needs serious clearance, and the Freedom that comes with it is the same primitive 2003 mold with a slightly altered color scheme. You buy this for the giant thing. Master Grade Freedom Gundam. The Master Grade treatment landed in 2004, and it dragged the Freedom into a completely different engineering universe. This was the first version of the machine with a genuine internal frame, a full skeleton of gray plastic running through the torso, arms, and legs, with armor panels clipping over it. The wings gained real multi-axis articulation instead of one hinge, the railguns and plasma cannons deployed on proper mechanisms, and the head sat on a jointed neck that could actually look up. It also introduced a problem the Freedom would never quite escape: the backpack. 8 wing segments plus 2 cannons cantilevered off the shoulders is a lot of leverage, and the 2004 frame's ankle and hip joints were not built to fight it. Backward tipping is the universal complaint in period reviews. For its era, it was excellent. Within a decade, it looked noticeably dated next to what Bandai had learned. 100 Strike Freedom Gundam. When Gundam SEED Destiny gave Kira a rebuilt machine in 2006, the no-grade 100 line got there first. This kit renders the ZGMF X20A at roughly 18 centimeters, with the same shell-based frameless construction as its predecessor, and it has one very specific selling point: the gold. Strike Freedom's inner frame is gold in the fiction, and Bandai delivered it here with gold-toned plastic and foil stickers, rather than any actual plating. The 8 Super Dragoon pods are fixed into the wing binders and do not detach. They are decoration, not a system. 2 beam rifles combine into the long barrel configuration, the waist railguns fold out, and the beam shield mounts on the forearm. It is the cheapest way to get a large Strike Freedom on a shelf, and for years it was also the only 1/100 option that did not cost as much as a video game console. High Grade Strike Freedom Gundam. Released in 2006 and later renumbered as Kit 201 when Bandai folded the SEED Destiny kits into the High Grade Cosmic Era line, this is the small Strike Freedom that stayed in production for nearly 2 decades. It uses newer part separation technology than the 2003 Freedom, meaning far more of the gold and blue trim is molded in color rather than stickered on, and the proportions are noticeably less stubby. The 8 Super Dragoon wings articulate individually, the hip railguns fold back for storage, and both beam rifles combine. A translucent beam shield part and 2 beam sabers round out the accessories. It can hold both the high mat posture and the full burst spread straight out of the box. It is not a modern kit. The elbows are single-jointed and the hip skirts limit leg splay, but it remains one of the most reprinted Gunpla in the entire Cosmic Era catalog. Master Grade Strike Freedom Gundam. The 2007 Master Grade is where Bandai first tried to solve the Dragoon problem at scale. All 8 Super Dragoon pods are individually mounted and swing on multi-jointed arms, and the wing binders themselves fan open into the full burst spread rather than moving as one slab. The internal frame is molded in gold-toned plastic and exposed through sliding armor panels on the shoulders, thighs, and forearms, which is the kit's real party trick. The armor physically slides to reveal the frame underneath instead of requiring you to remove parts. 2 beam rifles combine into the long-range configuration. The railguns extend. The beam shield clips to either forearm. The recurring criticism is the same one the Master Grade Freedom attracted. This is an enormous amount of backpack hanging off a 1/100 chassis, and without careful posing the whole thing wants to sit down. An included display base is not optional equipment. BB Senshi Strike Freedom Gundam. Kit 288 in the BB Senshi line gave the Strike Freedom the chibi treatment, and it did so with a detail the standard scale kits of the era did not get: gold-colored polycaps. The joints themselves are gold, so the exposed articulation reads as the gold inner frame rather than as bare gray plastic. Everything else is standard BB Senshi: pre-colored snap-together parts, bright foil stickers for the fine detail, no glue, no paint, and a build time measured in tens of minutes rather than hours. The 8 Dragoon pods are compressed into 2 exaggerated wing slabs, and the beam rifles are rendered as short cartoon props. Articulation is minimal by design. What the BB Senshi Strike Freedom really represents is Bandai's read on which mobile suits sell to which audience. The Strike Freedom was popular enough that it got a version aimed squarely at 8-year-olds, and that version has been reprinted repeatedly ever since. Master Grade Strike Freedom Gundam Full Burst Mode. This is not a new mold. It is the 2007 Master Grade in a different box with the parts that should have been in the original. The Full Burst Mode edition adds gold coating on selected frame components. Actual plated finish, not gold-tinted plastic, along with a set of Dragoon beam effect parts that plug into the pods to simulate the moment every SEED Destiny fan bought this kit for. A special clear blue display base is included, size to hold the model in a firing pose, and the box ships with a clear illustration poster depicting Strike Freedom against the Destiny Gundam. Everything else in the runners is identical to the standard release. Special edition reboxings like this are a recurring Bandai pattern, and they draw a predictable split reaction. Builders who want the effect parts pay the premium, and builders who already own the standard kit resent that the effects were never sold separately. Perfect Grade Strike Freedom Gundam. Released in December 2010 at 160 scale, this is, by wingspan, the largest perfect grade Bandai has ever produced. The expandable Super Dragoon array pushes it past every other kit in the line. The engineering was built from completely new molds. The gold-colored inner frame runs the full length of the model and is exposed through sliding armor mechanisms across the torso, arms, and legs, giving the layered mechanical look the perfect grade line exists to deliver. All 8 Super Dragoons mount on articulated arms. The kit includes the beam shield, 2 beam rifles that combine, 2 railguns, a display base engineered to carry the mass, and an LED unit for the head. Joints were reinforced specifically to fight the weight of that backpack, which was the failure point on every previous Strike Freedom. It currently lists on Premium Bandai's US store at $326, and it takes most builders somewhere between 15 and 30 hours. Perfect Grade Strike Freedom Gundam Lighting Edition. Bandai's Perfect Grade line has a long habit of selling the same kit twice, once plain and once lit, and the Strike Freedom is the clearest example. The Lighting Edition packages the 160 Perfect Grade with the LED illumination hardware included, rather than sold separately, wiring light into the head and, depending on the release, the chest and wing components. The effect matters more here than on most subjects, because the Strike Freedom's design is built around glow, the Dragoon emitters, the beam shield, the chest cannon ports. Lit from inside, the gold frame catches the light through the sliding armor gaps in a way that a static build simply cannot replicate. The trade-off is the standard one for lit Gunpla. Batteries, wiring runs threaded through joints that then cannot rotate freely, and a meaningful bump in price. It is the version most serious perfect grade collectors hunt for, and it commands a premium on the second-hand market accordingly. Real Grade Freedom Gundam. Released on 19 November 2011 as the 5th kit in the Real Grade line, this is the one that changed how people thought about 144 Freedoms. Real Grade's founding gimmick was the Advanced MS joint, a pre-assembled, multi-material internal frame that comes out of the runner already articulated, so a palm-sized kit ships with a real skeleton underneath its armor. On the Freedom, that means wings that fan into full burst on individually jointed segments, railguns that fold out on proper hinges, and a torso that twists. The kit is loaded with realistic decals, and the color separation is dramatically ahead of anything the 2003 High Grade managed. The known weakness is durability. The Advanced MS joint on early Real Grades is thin, and the Freedom's ankle joints in particular are notorious for snapping under the weight of that backpack. Build it carefully. Do not force the poses. Real Grade Freedom Gundam Deactive Mode. In 2012, Bandai released a version of the Real Grade Freedom through its online shop that removed the entire point of the color scheme. Deactive Mode renders the machine as it would look powered down and unpainted. A monochrome study in grays, off-whites, and darkened metallics, with the blue, red, and gold stripped out entirely. There is no new engineering here. The runners are the standard Real Grade Freedom molded in different colors, with a revised decal sheet. What makes it interesting is what it does to the design. Without the primary colors doing the work, the Freedom's actual panel lines, vents, and mechanical structure become visible in a way the production version hides. Deactive Mode kits have become a recurring premium Bandai staple across multiple subjects, and demand has stayed high enough that Bandai scheduled another re-release of this exact kit for May 2026, 14 years after it first shipped. Real Grade Strike Freedom Gundam. Kit 14 in the Real Grade line arrived in November 2013 and did something quietly significant. It broke the price ceiling. Every Real Grade before it had held at roughly 2,500 yen. The Strike Freedom shipped at around 3,100 to 3,150 yen, and the reason was metal. The inner frame components inside the wing binders and the Dragoon pods themselves are chrome-plated straight from the factory, so the gold that defines this mobile suit is genuinely reflective plating rather than paint or tinted plastic. All 8 Super Dragoons articulate. Both beam rifles combine. The build is widely described as straightforward by Real Grade standards, without the fragility traps that plagued the Real Grade Freedom. Reviewers at the time called it the best 144 Strike Freedom available, and more than a decade later that assessment has largely held. Nothing at that scale has since matched the combination of plated frame and full Dragoon articulation. Real Grade Strike Freedom Gundam Deactive Mode. The deactive treatment reached the Strike Freedom in February 2014 through Premium Bandai, and here the concept lands harder than it did on the original Freedom, because the Strike Freedom's entire visual identity is gold. Strip the plating and the primary colors, replace them with graded grays and matte off-whites, and what remains is a machine that reads as a technical schematic rather than a hero robot. The chrome that justified the base kit's price increase is gone, replaced with plain molded frame parts. The decal sheet is revised to match. This was a Japan-exclusive online release for most of its life, and it took roughly a decade before Bandai brought a version of the monochrome Strike Freedom to a US audience, a gap that made second-hand copies expensive for years. For builders who intend to paint, it is also the most useful starting point in the entire Strike Freedom catalog. High-grade Cosmic Era Freedom Gundam Revive. In August 2015, at 1,944 yen, Bandai completely retooled the 144 Freedom under its Revive initiative, a program that replaced aging high-grade molds with modern engineering at the same price point. Kit 192 is a ground-up new design. The proportions are lengthened and slimmed to match the anime line art rather than the chunky 2003 interpretation. The elbows and knees are double-jointed, and the wing binders articulate on multiple axes so the kit can actually hold the full burst spread without support. Color separation is dramatically improved, cutting sticker dependence to a fraction of what the original required. One quirk turned into a community-running joke. Reviewers quickly discovered the backpack mount is compatible with the high-grade After Colony Wing Gundam 0, so the Freedom's wings can be bolted onto Wing 0 and vice versa. It remains the default recommendation for anyone wanting a cheap, good Freedom. SD Gundam EX Standard Strike Freedom Gundam. Kit 6 in the EX Standard line, released outside Japan in late 2015 and domestically in summer 2016, was Bandai's attempt to fix everything wrong with super-deformed Gunpla. Where the older BB Senshi kits had swinging arms and nothing else, EX Standard kits are built around articulation. Jointed elbows, knees, hips and necks, in a body roughly 9 centimeters tall, with proportions tuned so the head no longer swallows the torso. Parts are molded in multiple colors, with foil marking stickers for the fine detail, and no glue or paint is needed. The line's distinguishing gimmick is cross-compatibility. Weapons from EX Standard kits are scaled to work with 144 high-grade kits, so the Strike Freedom's rifles can be borrowed, combined, and handed to a full-size model. It is a cheap, fast, genuinely posable Strike Freedom, and it is the version most builders reach for when they want the silhouette without the 4-hour build. Master Grade Freedom Gundam Ver 2.0. 12 years after the original Master Grade, Bandai rebuilt the Freedom from nothing. The 2016 Ver 2.0 uses an entirely new internal frame and new outer armor, with proportions influenced by the Master Grade AL Strike Ver, RM, longer in the leg, slimmer through the waist, and far closer to Hisashi Hirai's original line art. The head sits on a double-sided ball-jointed neck. Elbows and knees are double-jointed, and the elbow joint can be pulled down to extend its range further. Sliding armor panels in the thighs and forearms expose the frame, and flip-open hatches in the wing binders reveal internal detail that the 2004 kit did not model at all. Every weapon is recreated. Beam rifle, combining beam sabers, railguns, plasma cannons. Critically, the wing system is fully articulated and engineered to actually hold full burst mode, the pose the original Master Grade could barely stand up in. Full Mechanics Freedom Gundam Ver GCP. This one exists because of a statue. In 2021, an 18-meter Freedom Gundam was erected in Shanghai as part of the Gundam China Project, and Bandai commissioned a redesigned version of the mobile suit to match it. Heavier, more aggressive, with revised proportions and additional mechanical detail that the animation model never had. The Full Mechanics line, a 1/100 scale format that sits between high grade and master grade with a partial internal frame, got the kit first. It launched as a mainland China market exclusive before later appearing through Gundam base outlets, which made it genuinely hard to obtain in the West for a long stretch. The differences from the standard Freedom are substantial. Revised wing structure, extended detail on the binder interiors, a distinct color balance, and a full decal sheet specific to the GCP design. It is a statue rendered as plastic, and it reads as one. Master Grade Extreme Strike Freedom Gundam, released 19 November 2022 at 15,400 yen, roughly $180. The Master Grade Extreme Strike Freedom is the most technically excessive 1/100 Gunpla Bandai has produced. The line exists to push one gimmick past reason, and here the gimmick is metal. 6 separate patterns of metallic expression appear across the kit. 3 types of special surface processing, 2 types of metallic molding material, and etching seals, all used to render the gold inner frame with genuinely varied finishes, rather than one flat-plated look. All 8 DRAGOON pods articulate fully and feature a dedicated disconnected deployment mechanism, with gold detail hidden inside each pod that is only visible when they open. LED lighting is integrated. The weapons list runs to 2 high-energy beam rifles that combine into the long-range configuration, 2 Super Lacerda beam sabers, and 2 waist railguns. It is not a beginner kit and was never priced like one. Real Grade Freedom Gundam Ver GCP. In 2022, the Gundam China Project redesign came down to 144, released as a Gundam base exclusive built on the 2011 Real Grade Freedom's chassis. The updates are not cosmetic reprints. The kit adds newly molded parts to bring the Real Grade closer to the Shanghai statue, revised wing landing gear, restructured binder components, a more aggressive overall silhouette, and a shifted color scheme with deeper blues and heavier gold. A full GCP-specific decal sheet is included. Because it reuses the advanced MS joint from the base kit, it inherits both the strengths, an articulated pre-assembled frame and a palm-sized model, and the well-known weaknesses, including the fragile ankles. A clear color variant of the same kit was also produced. Availability was the real obstacle. Gundam base exclusives are tied to physical store locations and limited online windows, which pushed aftermarket prices well past the original retail. Master Grade SD Freedom Gundam. On 21 January 2023, at 4,290 yen, the Freedom launched an entire new Gunpla format. Master Grade SD is exactly what the name suggests. Master Grade engineering compressed into a super-deformed body, and the Freedom was chosen as its debut subject. The finished kit stands about 115 millimeters tall, and underneath the cartoon proportions sits an internal frame with movable gimmicks throughout, giving it articulation that no previous SD kit approached. The head moves on 3 separate axes. Bandai debuted its real metallic gloss injection material here, a molding process that produces a metallic sheen straight from the runner without plating or paint, used across the gold trim. Inside the wing binders, a new reflection cut treatment on the clear parts catches and scatters light to simulate the energy glow. It sold out repeatedly, spawned an entire product line, and remains the kit most often recommended to explain what Master Grade SD is for. Master Grade Extreme Strike Freedom Coating Editions. Bandai has re-released the Master Grade Extreme Strike Freedom in a series of premium-coated variants, and the prices attached to them are the story. A midnight coating version was produced for the Chinese market in May 2024 at 4,200 yuan, roughly $575 US. A twilight coating edition, sold through Gundam base locations, was priced at 66,000 yen and scheduled for release on 13 December 2025. Listings on Premium Bandai's US store carried it near $787. A mechanical clear version has also appeared. In every case, the underlying kit is unchanged from the 2022 release. Same runners, same DRAGOON mechanism, same LED provision, and the entire premium is paid for surface finish, with the plating darkened, iridized, or made translucent depending on the edition. These are collector objects sold at collector multiples, and they consistently sell out anyway. High Grade Cosmic Era Rising Freedom Gundam. The 2024 film Mobile Suit Gundam SEED Freedom gave Kira a new machine, and the high-grade kit hit shelves on 26 January 2024 at 2,640 yen, the same day the movie's Gunpla wave launched. Kit 243 is built around the SEED action system, an internal structure Bandai developed specifically for the Cosmic Era kits to reproduce the exaggerated action poses the SEED series is animated with, giving the torso and hips a range that standard high-grade frames do not have. The kit transforms into mobile armor form by swapping a handful of parts rather than through a fixed mechanism. The wings deploy, the dorsal Agni cannon rotates into firing position, and the waist railgun barrels physically extend, so the full high-mat full-burst configuration is achievable out of the box. 2 beam sabers are included and connect at the hilts. A premium Bandai clear color variant followed later in 2024. High-grade Cosmic Era Mighty Strike Freedom Gundam, released 25 May 2024 at 2,970 yen, Kit 250 is technically 2 things in one box. The Strike Freedom Gundam Type 2 and the Proud Defender support unit that docks onto it, which together form the Mighty Strike Freedom seen in the film's final act. That combination is what makes the kit large and awkward for a high grade. The Proud Defender is a substantial assembly of wings, cannons, and thrusters that hangs off the back of an already backpack-heavy machine. The white wing sections slide at 8 separate points to reproduce the expanded state, and the individual wing components articulate far more extensively than any previous 1144 Strike Freedom. Bandai used real metallic gloss injection material for the gold parts, so the frame detail carries a metallic sheen without plating. Like the Rising Freedom, it uses the SEED Action System frame. It is the single most parts-dense high grade in the Cosmic Era line. SD Cross Silhouette Mighty Strike Freedom Gundam. Kit 21 in the SD Cross Silhouette line brings the film's final machine into super-deformed scale, and Cross Silhouette is the most technically interesting of Bandai's SD formats. The line's defining feature is a swappable inner frame, the Cross Silhouette frame, that lets a builder switch a kit between classic squat SD proportions and a taller, longer-limbed configuration, effectively selling two body shapes in one box. Applied to the Mighty Strike Freedom, that means the enormous Proud Defender wing assembly can be balanced against either silhouette. Parts are molded in color with foil stickers for detail. Articulation covers shoulders, elbows, hips, and knees, and the build takes well under 2 hours. It is cheap, it is fast, and it delivers the film's most complicated mobile suit in a form that does not require a display base and a support arm to stay upright, which at full scale it very much does. High-grade Rising Freedom Gundam Recirculation Color. Bandai's ECOPLA program collects used plastic runners from Gunpla recycling points at Gundam-based stores and events, reprocesses them, and molds new kits from the recovered material. Because recycled plastic cannot be color-matched reliably, the results are sold under the Recirculation color banner in deliberately strange palettes that the original design never had. The Rising Freedom got a neon yellow version, available at Gundam-based locations from 28 June 2025, combining dark recycled material components with aggressively bright neon molding. Mechanically, it is identical to the standard 2024 kit. Same SEED Action System frame, same mobile armor part swap, same extending railguns. What you are buying is the material and the color, and a small piece of a sustainability initiative that Bandai has expanded across entry grade, high grade, and master grade subjects. Collectors treat them as limited editions. Environmentalists treat them as a rounding error. Both are correct. Real Grade Freedom Gundam Apex Legends Crypto Ver. The strangest entry in the catalog is a crossover nobody predicted. Bandai partnered with Electronic Arts on a Gundam and Apex Legends collaboration, producing a Real Grade Freedom recolored to represent the Apex character Crypto, a new color scheme built to evoke that character's design rather than Kira Yamato's, applied to the 2011 Real Grade tooling. It is slated for release in July 2026. The engineering underneath is unchanged. Advanced MS joint frame, articulated wing binders, folding railguns, combining beam sabers. Everything different about it is color and marking decals. Video game crossover Gunpla is not new. Bandai has run collaborations across multiple franchises, but a Freedom Gundam wearing the livery of a Battle Royale hacker is a long way from a 2003 anime tie-in kit, and it says something about where the Freedom sits now as a brand asset rather than a character's machine. Master Grade Extreme Mighty Strike Freedom Gundam. The most recent addition to the lineage has been revealed but, as of this writing, not yet fully released. Bandai has announced that the Master Grade Extreme line, its highest-end 1/100 format, the one that produced the 15,400 yen Strike Freedom in 2022, is returning to Gundam SEED for the Mighty Strike Freedom. Given what the line did with the Strike Freedom, expectations are specific. Multiple grades of metallic surface treatment on the gold frame, an LED system, and full articulation on the Proud Defender's wing and cannon array, which is a considerably more complex assembly than the 8 DRAGOONs the previous kit had to solve. Pricing has not been confirmed at the time of writing, though the line's history makes a figure well above the 2022 release likely. 23 years after a crude sticker-covered high grade, the Freedom is still the machine Bandai builds its most expensive plastic around. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.